Alright guys, I have something a little bit different for you today. Let me know what you think of this down below, and maybe we can make more of them in the future. Let me know. The catalyst for this was basically content that I wanted to see again. As I've talked about before, I've been pretty heavy into the true crime stuff, and Miss Sin told me about a story that she had not heard of but wanted covered, so I decided to take a stab at it. No pun intended. Let me know what you think. Matricide is defined as the killing of one's own mother. Fratricide is the killing of one's own brother or sister, or friendly fire in war. Remember, friendly fire isn't. And that's basically the case we're going to be looking at today. In the early stages of this, it's pretty scarce for material as far as 911 and interrogation because there was a press block on it, but I'll tell you a story, all right.
Good evening, I'm Janella Massa near Markham and Eglinton, where a murder mystery of sorts is unfolding here in Scarborough. We've learned this hour that this scene behind me here is connected to another scene at Queens Quay where police have evacuated an area due to a suspicious package. Now, we'll bring you more on that in just a moment, but first, 3 people are dead, 2 men and a woman, after an incident here on this residential street involving a crossbow. News of this horrific incident is sending shockwaves through this quiet Scarborough neighborhood.
I'm so scared, and I think, should I stay here or we have to sell the house? Because I have 2 kids and we are always walking this road.
It's very sad to hear, and it was very shocking to hear this will happen in a quiet neighborhood.
Now, police have also revealed that there is a connection to an evacuation on Queens Quay. A building near York Street was cleared out around 2:30 due to reports of a suspicious package. The evacuation remains in effect this hour, and traffic in the area is blocked off. Police tell City News they're expecting to clear the scene shortly. Investigators won't say how this is all connected to the murders in Scarborough.
To quote the judge who presided over this case, quote, "This is an extremely tragic case. An entire family had been destroyed by a web of lies," end quote. Justice John McMahon. Brett Ryan, 36 at the time, killed his family with a crossbow. His oldest brother, 42-year-old Christopher, his mother, 66-year-old Susan, his little brother, 29-year-old Alexander, and attempted murder on his little brother Lee, or Lay maybe, 38 years old. Why? Why would he do this? Well, it's because his mom gave him an ultimatum. But we'll get to that in a little bit. To quote an article I read on this, quote, "Brett was always smiling and polite. He volunteered at sick kids and refereed Little League games at a local community center. He was good-looking, generous, and he made friends pretty easily. After high school, he enrolled at University of Toronto, but it was too much for him, and he dropped out," end quote. Now, while he saw the rest of his buddies around him becoming successful, building careers for them, he was stuck as a painter. This was just a summer job that turned into a full-time job for him. Everyone around him was becoming successful, getting a better education, better financial situations. But he was not in the same scenario. He had a little Dodge Dakota and a paintbrush. He was getting pretty desperate. In 2010, Brett was only 26 years old. He found himself in $60,000 Canadian, $52 American, no, I'm kidding, $50,000 American in debt. He was living with his family in a detached house on their property in Conference Boulevard. This was not quite where he thought he'd be. I mean, who would think they would be there? He was in debt because of reckless spending after him and a former girlfriend had broken up. But rather than give up, he devised himself a little bit of a plan. He thought that he could win over his money problems by, something every normal person thinks of: robbing banks. The first bank that he robbed was the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, or the CIBC, right there on Old Kingston Road. It was just an 8-minute drive from his home. He wrapped his face up in hospital bandages, hung his left arm in a sling, and he shuffled into the old bank with a ream of paper. At the counter, he handed the teller a note, saying that he was carrying a gun, and he demanded $2,000 or more. The teller quickly gave him money, but he only got about $1,115. But he did make it away without getting caught. That was it. He was hooked. He wanted more. And obviously, he went out and got more. Over the next few months, about 8 months, he robbed 12 more banks all along the same stretch of road. They were all around his neighborhood, including his home branch. Very smart. Don't shit where you eat. He stole about 28, almost 30,000 Canadian dollars. So about $10 American. What made this string of bank robberies so unique was the disguise used by the bank robber. He was a young man, 26 years old, but he made himself up to look like an elderly guy. He put on a fake beard, he shuffled, he limped, he had his arm in a sling. He went the full 9 with it. He went all the way. Prosthetics, everything. But that's how he got caught, too. That's also how he earned his name, the fake Beard Bandit. Investigators had to get creative on how to deal with this old man. Well, what they assumed to be an old man coming in and robbing all the banks. They had to get creative because the surveillance footage of the banks showed that it wasn't an old man. It was a youthful face. It was a young man's face covered in old man stuff. So they began looking around, see who sold what theatrical company would sell fake beards, what would do this. They consulted with whatever passes for a movie studio in Canada, and they determined that all that stuff could only be bought at one store. So they went through 6 months worth of sales receipts, and they turned up 2 potential sales. In both cases, a customer paid in cash. The clerk remembered selling the items to a young guy who claimed that it was for his brother. I don't know why you would say that. So the cops, they set up surveillance cameras outside of the store. And, the evidence came that they were on the right track. On June 9th, 2008, police followed Ryan as he cased a handful of banks in the area. He would drive by, case the joint, go in, check it out, and just dip out. He was gone. What I like to envision is a guy walking in and slowly doing the heel-to-toe thing, leaning forward, going, man, nice bank you got here. It would be a shame if somebody, happened to rob it. It was that same branch less than 2 weeks later Ryan decided to go into in full disguise. But he abandoned the robbery once he got inside. On screen right now, I'm going to show you artist renditions of the disguise that he used. But the TD robbery, nobody really knows why he abandoned it. The main thought is there was construction outside, so they thought he might not get away as easily. That is the best guess that they have. But here's what happened. Even though it was in the middle of June and it was pretty hot, he wore this long black coat, a bucket hat a la Gilligan's Island, and he had an attaché with him, a case. And the case had a note. The note said, quote, "Stay calm, have a gun, $4,000, large bills, no games, 60 seconds, go." But outside the bank, however, there was undercover Toronto police. They were hanging out there. They were readied for a holdup by a criminal equally gifted, quote, in robbery and disguise, end quote. Now, the cops saw him get into his car earlier that day, a youthful Brett Ryan. But who they saw get out of the car was the Beard Bandit. Once he got inside the bank, his mind changed somewhere. He didn't go up to the counter. He didn't do any of that. He just gave up. He didn't do any of his MO. Never gave the note, never did anything. He stood in the bank for a couple of minutes. Then he walked right back out, right into police custody. He just gave himself up right there. The bearded bandit that had been messing with the cops for 8 months, stealing almost 30,000 Canadian dollars, he just turned himself in. This was another mystery nobody really knew. They had no idea. It was, quote, another mystery dimension of the case, end quote. But the transcripts from the January 2009 court proceedings in the so-called Bearded Bandit case were how Ryan's friends and family were completely blindsided by his behavior. Everybody up to and including the judge said it was, quote, out of character for Ryan. But that it was out of character, the judge denied the 10-year prison sentence requested by the prosecution, handed him a sentence of 3 years and 9 months. In parting words, the judge told Ryan that, quote, "You're a lucky man, Mr. Ryan. You have family behind you, and I think family will stick with you," end quote. He said that in the hopes that Ryan would kind of move past this criminal lifestyle. It was out of character, didn't seem like something he would do, so we hoped that it would pass. But not quite how it happened. Ryan was seen as a model prisoner, and he was let out early, April 2010. On the outside, though, he wasn't going to have much luck. What's he going to do? He's an ex-con, high school education, and nobody's going to employ a serial bank robber. Like, that is what it is. He couldn't go back to painting, because who the hell would hire a serial bank robber to paint their house? And any prospective employment just had to Google him, and they would go, hell no, we're not hiring you. And on top of all that, he couldn't face his debts, so he filed for bankruptcy. So he was bankrupt, ex-con, high school education, couldn't get a job. Good mixture. And this was stressed more than ever with his family. He was the third of 4 brothers. The eldest was a city worker, a fare collector. He was shy, but he had a goofy side to those who knew him. Then the second one, Leland. He was the artsy one. He was 2.5 years older than Brett. He played drums, guitar, photography. He stored vintage antiques. And the youngest was AJ, 6 years younger than Brett. He stood out for his intellect. He was so highly acclaimed that his parents sent him to a school for gifted students. Brett, he suffered periodic bouts of depression. He kept it private. He wanted to be the image of strength and positivity. He wanted to be admired, not looked down on, not pitied. Sue, the mother, Sue Ryan was bothered by the neighborhood. She didn't like the rumors going around. So they decided to up and move. They moved to a new place, Lawndale. It was a quiet street, and a familiar calm fell over the family. She hated the fact that the neighbors would talk and gossip about her bearded bandit son. So they went someplace new. Her hobbies was the garden. She loved her garden. She spent every day out there that she could working on her garden. She loved it. Meanwhile, Brett worked retail, minimum wage, low jobs. Not downing anybody who does that, but that's all he could work. He got some help from his parents money-wise and decided to go back to school. He went for a degree in biophysics. And he also made it a concerted effort to be more open. He visited a psychologist who told him that the chief lesson from his robberies was that to avoid further trouble, quote, he needed to be honest with those closest to him, end quote. And, well, we kind of know what happens there. He did not keep up with this, and he did get himself in quite a bit more trouble by continuing to lie. In September 2011, he got set up on a blind date with Kristen Baxter. She was a blonde athletic psychotherapist, but normal. And she had everything and was everything that he wanted to be. She lived a quiet life, no drama. She had a nice job, a nice home. She liked hiking, traveling, and hanging out with her dog. She had a waterfront house. They hit it off right away. They, quote, looked like the couple that comes with the picture frame, end quote. She knew about his criminal past, but it didn't stop her from falling for him. In 2013, he moved into her condo. About a year after Brett moved in with Kristen, his father, Bill, had died. Brett took a hand and took care of his mom, helping her with some of the administration tasks Bill once took care of, and he also took to performing odd jobs around the house for some extra cash. Turned out he needed the money. He had recently proposed to Kristen with a beautiful diamond ring. Once again, his finances were in trouble. He began his web of lies in 2015. He dropped out of school, and he didn't tell anybody. He lied to his fiancée and his family. They all thought he was still in school. But Ryan got an IT job in May of 2016, but he was dismissed the next day after the employer found out that he was the Bearded Bandit. They rescinded the offer right away. Ryan lied about the fact that the job got taken away from him and said that he was continuing to work from home. However, Brett was working for his homemaker mother, doing odd jobs around the house. She helped him out financially, but she thought that he was working from home too. Kristen, on the other hand, was a university grad, working at a computer job. Brett was out there making his mom proud. She often bragged about his success to all of the friends. She told them about his university degree, his great job, his condo by the lake, everything, the upcoming wedding. All while he relied on her more than ever. With so many financial demands on the horizon, he kept asking for more jobs, more money. She did what she could, and that was about it. Even with her help, Brett's situation was not getting any easier. Less than a month before the wedding, and lie upon lie upon lie, he finally decided to follow the advice. He told his mother the truth about what was really happening. He knew that he had to get a job, but he needed her help, her financial help, until it happened. Instead of, the handout that he thought he would get for being honest, he got something else. His mother gave him a choice. He either comes clean to Kristen about everything, or she would tell Kristen herself. And she wouldn't give him any money until he came clean to his fiancée. For Brett, telling Kristen what was going on was absolutely the worst scenario he could think of. She could leave him. He could be back at home on this little house with his family. He'd have nothing, just reliving the history of failure. And it seemed terribly unfair for somebody like him. He did everything he could for other people. In his mind, being so close to getting his dream and having it taken away by his mom, the one person he's supposed to be able to rely on, who's supposed to be in his corner for everything, to be backstabbed like that, by that person, he wasn't going to go for it. He was going to end it. But he needed a weapon. The conditions of his sentencing made it so he couldn't get a real gun, so he went for the next best thing in his mind. He bought a crossbow. It's completely legal, doesn't require a license, and can be purchased by just about anybody. He chose a youth crossbow. He got the Barnett Recruit Youth 30, one of the cheapest and lightest available. Designed for teenagers. Shoots about 140 feet per second. On Amazon, it costs like $150. American, by the way. Brent bought this secondhand to avoid leaving a potential paper trail. So Brett's mom, giving him the ultimatum, none the wiser to his plan, continued to have him over to do work around the house. During one of the trips over there, that's when he decided to hide the crossbow in the garage. The garage was a mess, building supplies everywhere. He knew that no one would go poking around in it. So he put it on the top shelf of a cabinet in the garage. August 25th, the day. It was supposedly a sweltering day with high humidity. In the morning, Brett and Kristen got ready for work. She at her psychotherapy job, he at his imaginary tech company. She left at about 7:30 a.m. Once she was gone, he got to work on building a device that would hopefully be his alibi if he ever got accused of the crimes that were about to be committed. He opened up his laptop, propped it up against the wall with 2 5-pound weights. Then he duct taped a wooden spoon to an oscillating fan and put the cord on a digital timer, kind of like the ones you use for Christmas lights or aquarium lights. When the timer activated, the fan would turn on, turn the spoon, it would click the enter key, it would open up YouTube. It sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
Shouldn't you be working?
I got someone to cover for me.
And then in this mousetrap-esque alibi of his, he took 2 more fans and put them on a piece of wood. And on the piece of wood, he put a phone and a tablet, probably an iPhone and an iPad. And on the fans, he taped little styluses to them. Each one was set on its own digital timer, just like the first one. And the styluses would tap one of the devices, and it would send a text message about a real estate tip to a buddy. And the other one would send a message about home repair. Both would go off at various points throughout the day. So if they ever looked into his phone records or did any investigation on his whereabouts, he could be like, I was at home, I was sending text messages, answering emails, blah, 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 blah. Perfect alibi for the digital age, right? Well, not really. But he just did this in case the police try to triangulate where he was, doing all that tracking stuff that they do, whatever that's called. But despite all this, we know how it turned out. But in order for this to work, he needed to leave his condo building and not show up on the security cameras. Any of them. Elevator, parking lot, lobby, any. He only had one route out. 14 flights of stairs down, through a back alley, and there were still cameras there too. He kind of eyeballed him and knew how to duck and dodge out of the way. But when he left, it was a full go. He took the train station and walked 10 minutes to his mom's house. Despite the crazy heat of the day, he still put on 2 pairs of jeans and carried a gym bag with a bit of a familiar disguise. Spare clothing, a wig, a bucket hat, same stuff he used to wear. He even carried a couple extra crossbow bolt heads, just in case. Now, his mom wasn't feeling too hot, so she wasn't expecting him to show up. She had canceled the plans to go out with her friends like she was supposed to, but either way, he showed up, 10 a.m. Brett had hoped that she might see stuff from his perspective, but she didn't. She held her ground, and she promised to tell Kristen everything again if Brett didn't. This time the argument got a little heated. Sue called her eldest son, Chris, and told him to come over and help deal with the little one. Brett realized that the situation was not going well, and it was getting out of hand. He marched out back for the crossbow. She followed him. Now, the issue is crossbows are not super easy to load. He didn't have a lot of time with her following behind him and him getting to the garage. So, he grabbed one of the bolts, the ones with the 3 sharp pointed blades, and he stabbed her with it, from the cheek and the ear. He wrestled her to the ground behind a pile of material, and he strangled her with a bit of nylon rope. He strangled her until she died right there in the garage. After Brett stabbed his mother, strangled her to death, he set about cocking the crossbow. He knew the older brother was on the way, and that he had to be prepared. He braced the crossbow on the ground and cocked it up. It's pretty simple. You hold, pull. You've all seen it in The Walking Dead. You hold it down, you lift it up. Boom. Cocked. So he sat and waiting for his brother to show up. When Chris finally came into the garage, Brett stepped up quietly behind him and fired at point-blank range. The 3-bladed object went right through Chris's neck and lodged in his mouth. Brett barely had to squeeze the trigger. All it needed was his light touch. Chris died immediately. He then took Chris's body and piled it on top of his mother's. He threw a tarp over him, and he was trying to leave, but he didn't have time. As he left, his other brother, AJ, had been coming up the driveway, so he approached AJ with a crossbow bolt in his hand and stabbed him in the neck with it. AJ collapsed right there in the driveway. So by this point, he had strangled his mother, shot his brother with a crossbow in the neck, and just stabbed his younger brother right there in the throat in the driveway. Thankfully, Leland heard all of this. I say thankfully very loosely. Leland heard all of this going on, and he went to call 911. But Brett ran in the house and intercepted him before he could. One of the most vicious struggles a human being can imagine took place. They fought ferociously for their lives. The 2 brothers stumbled throughout the house, down the hallways into bedrooms, fighting, kicking, biting, I assume everything. They knocked over furniture, snapped end tables through each other through doors. Brett was soaked in blood, all the blood of his family members, and Leland sustained a pretty bad head wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. As they fought, they left a trail of blood throughout the house. Meanwhile, while all this was happening, AJ took his final moments and crawled down the driveway toward the street. He only made it as far as the front of the house. Leland escaped from his brother. He ran outside to a neighbor's house. He pounded on the door, and when they opened it, he said, quote, "Call 911. My brother is bleeding in the driveway. Make sure the police come. Make sure the police come." End quote. After saying this, he promptly passed out. Defeated and well-deserved ass-kicking, Brett turned around and went to the fridge. He opened it up and got himself a nice cold bottle of water. I'm sure he was parched. He didn't even bother closing the door. He went and sat on the front stoop. He was waiting there, just waiting for the police to come. AJ was still alive when the first officer showed up, but he would not stay alive until the paramedics came. The officer said, quote, "I should have driven him to the hospital. He may have lived." Brett turned around and told the cops, "The guys in the garage are dead. Crossbow to the head. It was me." End quote. Shortly after he was arrested, the Toronto police went into Kristen's condo and they discovered all the homemade alibi devices. They weren't quite sure what to think about it, so they called in the Canadian version of the SWAT team, a chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosive diffusion team, I guess. And they locked the whole building down, evacuated it. They unplugged the fans, removed everything. They thought it was a big bomb or something. The devices were all functioning properly, and they would have worked if they weren't disassembled. Their report contradicted Brett's version of events. He told prosecutors that he had experienced a change of heart after assembling the devices, that he hadn't activated them before leaving. But that's a lie, because he did. Look, if you're going to lie about something like that, make sure it's a lie that cannot be easily disproven by just going, "Oh, it's plugged in." That seems to be the smarter way of being a fucking piece of shit, instead of just going, "Yeah, no, I didn't do it." You fucking did. So Brett, he lawyered up. I cannot find any 911 calls, any interrogation footage, nothing. But he lawyered up real quick. He hired the Toronto criminal lawyer known as Mr. Murder. He represented people like Paul Bernardo and the Drangheta crime family. Brett waived pretty much everything and just pleaded guilty right away. He pled guilty to second-degree murder in the death of his mother. He said that during their argument, he went to get the crossbow, not to threaten her, not to kill her. That obviously didn't happen. He pleaded guilty to first-degree murder for his brother Chris's death, and since he had hidden and waiting for his other brother to arrive to execute him, and for AJ, he was convicted of second-degree murder, since the victim showed up unexpectedly. Brett decided to address the court. Through tears, he said, quote, "I can only begin to say how sorry I am for what I've done. I am sick with grief," end quote. I bet he never thought that it was going to end up like this. Continuing the quote, "The time now doesn't belong to me. I'll make the most of every opportunity I'm afforded. To everyone, for all of this, I am very sorry," end quote. Well, that kind of rings hollow after you killed everybody who ever gave a shit about you because they wouldn't keep giving you money to lie to your probably out-of-your-league girlfriend. The presiding judge outlined the reasons for his sentencing. He expressed admiration for Brett's presentation in the court, complimented his sincerity and willingness to be accountable for his deeds. He determined that Brett was not just the author of this tragedy, but in a way one of its victims. Quote, "A good man who had done something extraordinarily heinous," end quote. Brett had been caught in the simple web of lies. McMahon concluded, quote, "I have no hesitation that Mr. Ryan is remorseful for his actions," end quote. Brett received concurrent life sentences for each of the murders, plus 10 years for the attempted murder of Leland. He'll be eligible for parole in 2041, at which point he'll be 60 years old. Leland Ryan, the last surviving brother, has basically been crippled by this. He said he has severe anxiety, he struggles to leave the house at all, he can't sleep, he can't concentrate, and that his thoughts really dwell on his little brother. Can't say that I blame him. I couldn't imagine having my brother kill my entire family over a few bucks. That's just insane to me. Maybe it's because I grew up in an Italian household and we hold family above all else, but I could not even imagine this. Well, one thing's for sure, Brett Ryan probably does regret his decision, or maybe he just regrets getting caught. We will never know, but he will probably never tell either. Said he doesn't want to be pitied, so he'll probably never express his real emotions on the whole situation. But it would be interesting to see later on. He hasn't done any interviews or anything that I could find. That would be pretty interesting to see. It's a sad story. I also feel bad for the girl. Could you imagine how responsible she feels for all of this? Yeesh. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know if you like this. It took me a while to research and kind of bullet point this out, so let me know what you think. Maybe if you like it, we can do another one a little bit later on. Maybe. Let me know what you think, guys. Thank you for watching.